Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I have a cute little winter scene for you with a snowman and this cute little kitten. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll be starting with the brand new Art Impressions Slimline dies, and I'm going to grab that largest one. So this die measures 3.5 by 8.5. So this is a standard Slimline card size. Now for paper, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut this. I'll tape this down with a little bit of purple tape just to hold that in place, and I'm running it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now you can see it's a little bit long for the machine, so I'm just going to slide it up a little bit here, and then I'll just run that through again. And it is a lot easier if you place this on a little bit of an angle. It just makes it easier to run it through your die cutting machine. So now I've placed that on my We Are Memory Keepers silicone mat, and I've got some purple tape here. And this is the 1.5-inch purple tape, and I'm just going to place that about 4 inches up from the bottom, and then I'll go up another 2.5 inches and put another piece of that tape. And I'm using that silicone mat, the grid lines on that, to make sure this is nice and straight. So I'm pressing out that purple tape, and for ink I'm going to be using the Kitsch Flamingo Distress Oxide ink from Tim Holtz. And I'll start at the bottom here. I'm just going to apply a nice coating of this right along the bottom edge, and I'm just pushing it up over the top of this purple tape. Now once I have a nice coating of that, I'm going to grab the next color here, which is the worn lipstick. And I'll place that just above that Kitsch Flamingo. And again, I'm going to apply a nice layer of this on here. Now I'm coming back in with the Kitsch Flamingo applicator tool, and I'm just going to blot some of that off. I got a little bit more than I wanted, so I'll just blend those two together and just blotting off any excess there. Now once I've done that, I'm coming in with the Eige Mahogany, and I'll bring that from the top down into that worn lipstick color. So I'm just going to push that color right into the other one there and just sort of blend those two together just a little bit here. Then I'll go in reverse order, taking that worn lipstick foam applicator, and I'll blend those two together. And then I'll go back to the Kitsch Flamingo and add just a little bit more color there and do a final blending. So just keep blending this until you get these colors to blend nice and smooth. Now I'm using my Distress sprayer, which just has water in it, and I'm going to put a little bit of water on my glass medium mat, and with a small paintbrush I'm going to go ahead and spatter this panel. And this will just leave some nice little spatter marks here on the paper. So I'm using a dry paper towel, and I'm just picking up that water. So you can see that leaves those really pretty spatters. I'll heat set that really quickly with my heat tool. And then I'm going to my Prima Art Philosophy Metallic Accents. These are just some really pretty watercolors. And I'm going to be using that silvery white color there. So I'm spritzing a little bit of water in there, and then I'm going back to that same paintbrush, and I'm just going to spatter some of this on this panel as well. And this will give us a nice metallic shimmer. And I'm using the smaller paintbrush just to get some smaller spatters here. So I'll go ahead and heat set that. And then we're adding one more layer here. This is the white gesso. Now you could use white acrylic paint here as well, but I happen to have this out. So I'm adding a little bit of the white gesso to my glass medium mat. I'll spritz that with a little bit of water as well. And then I'll go ahead and spatter that. And I do want quite a bit of the white. I want it to look like a really snowy scene. So once I've spattered that, I'm going to go ahead again with my heat tool and heat set that one last time. So now I can go ahead and remove that purple tape, and you'll see that we have this beautiful snowy sky here. So I want to reuse my purple tape. I like to reuse it, so I just lay it on my glass mat, spritz it with some water, and it cleans right off. So I can set that aside for another project. So let's take a closer look at this sky, which now has all three of those spatter techniques on there. So let's take a look at the stamps. We're going to be using this Feline set from Art Impressions. We're going to be using that little kitten there. And these do come with the coordinating dies. And then we're also using the Chubby Snowman set. So we're using that little snowman there. Again, this comes with the dies, and later on we'll be using that sentiment as well. So I've placed the snowman and the little kitten in my Misty stamp positioner. And for ink, I'm using the VersaFine Onyx black ink. So I'll go ahead and ink this up. And I'll stamp this a couple of times just to make sure I get a nice crisp image. So let's go ahead and do some coloring. We're using the Tea Rose for the little pink cheeks here. And then I'm using Turquoise Green to do the scarf. Now these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, so these are a water-based pen. And I'll use a blender pen here to do my blending, but you could use a water brush here as well. So there's the blender pen, and I'm just scribbling it on my scrap paper just to make sure that it's clean. And then I can also remove ink with this as well. So if you see me pulling some ink off and scribbling it onto the scrap paper, I'm just removing a little bit of ink. Now I'm going to use that same color to add some darker shadows. You could certainly add a second color here if you wanted to, but I just wanted to keep it in this tone. So I'm just going to add those shadows using that same marker. Now I'll also do the little mittens here, and I'm adding the shadow sort of down towards the bottom of his mitten, and then I'll pull that up towards the top, and I added a little shadow in the crease there as well. I'm going to use the same color on the hat, again just adding my shadows off to the side here, and then pulling up towards the top. Now you can just keep adding layers of color until you get that shadowing that you're looking for. Now with gray brown, I'm going to color in the little jacket here. And I will list all the colors I used today down below, but they're also listed up at the top there as we're going along. So if you're interested in those colors, you can check that out. Now you'll see here later on, we're going to be replacing that little bird with a kitty cat there. We're going to put a little cat in his arms. So I'm not going to color in the entire bird, but I will color in the hat because we're going to be putting that hat on our kitten there. So now for the little pom-pom, I'm using the light gray, and I'll just add a little bit of shadow there and blend that in. And then I'll add that same light gray on the hat. Now with light carmine, I'm going to color in his shirt. And if you love this little snowman as much as I do, you may want to check out a card that I did. I have it listed up top there, with the Chubby Snowman Shaker card. And I'll link to that below as well if you're interested in taking a look at that video. So now I'm using black to do the little boots. Now you could certainly leave this white if you wanted him to be the all white, that he didn't have little boots on. You could leave these white as well. But I decided that I thought the black would coordinate well with the little paw prints that we're going to be adding to our card later on. So I wanted to introduce a little bit more of that black here. And there you can see I'm just removing a little bit of ink from the tops just to give those a little highlight. Now with beige and mid brown, I'm going to color in this little cat, and I'm starting off with that lighter color, and then I'll add my shadows here as well. And I had already added that pink to the cheeks, so I'm just going to blend very lightly up to the cheeks there. And again, if you get too much ink there, you can just scribble it on to your scrap paper. Just pick up that color and scribble it onto your scrap paper. Just adding a little bit more pink there. So let me give you a closer look at these little images, and they're just so cute. And you can see that we did not color in the rest of the bird because, again, we're going to be cutting that away. So first I'm going to grab the coordinating stencils. I'll tape those down with a little bit of purple tape, and I'll run those through the Sidekick machine. So now that we have those die cut, I'm going to create a little tab here. I want to keep the little hat, but I'm going to cut away part of the bird, but I don't want to cut the whole thing away because I need a place to glue my little kitten. So I'm just going to create a little tab. So I'm cutting around the mitten here. And then I'll just cut away a little portion of the bird there. I don't need that part sticking all the way out. I don't need the tail part. So I'm just going to cut that off. So I just want to show you some different ways you can alter your images so that you can use them for other things. Now I do want to keep the little hat because we're going to put the hat on the little kitten. So again, I'm just going to cut around that and keep that piece. And then I'll just fix this a little bit here. I'm just trimming off any excess. And you can see that's my little tab there. Now I just want to test and see if my little kitten is going to go all the way in. I want them to really look like they're snuggling here. So you can see that it's not quite in far enough. So I'm going to cut in a little bit further past that mitten. So I'll just create a little slit there, just so I can slide him a little further. So you do want to take your time here, just cutting away pieces as you need to. So now I've got that little tab where the bird was, and I can go ahead and glue this in place. So I've got a little excess here. I'll cut that away. And then what you can do if you cut away any of the stamping is grab your black Tombow marker. And with this, I can go ahead and just put those lines back in here. So I'm just using that just to go around the edge there. I'm not going to do the rest of the image because there is a little white border there. So I'm going to leave that as is. So I did that for the hat as well. So now I can go ahead with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive and I can glue down my little kitten. So again, I'll slide that right into that space there where we have that little opening. And it just makes it easier to keep a little tab there so you have something to glue this to. Now I'll add a little bit more glue behind the mitten there. And then I can go ahead and add his little hat. So now that that's all set, let's take the Uniball white gel pen and just add some stitching on the hat. I'm going to add some stripes on the scarf. And this is a good time to look at the packaging because the packaging actually gives you some great ideas of different ways you can add some details to your images. And you can see how much that adds to it just by adding those few little details. So now I want to add the paw prints down at the bottom of the card. I did that off camera, but that's the little paw print I used. And I just used a small acrylic block and I went ahead and stamped those paw prints. And I stamped those using the VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then I grabbed the sentiment from the little Chubby Snowman set. And it says, "The snuggle is real." And I just think that is so cute. So I'm going to stamp that a couple of times. And so now I'll grab the large snowflake die set from Art Impressions, and I'm going to be using some of those smaller dies. I do like to keep my snowflake dies all connected together, so I'm just going to die cut a whole bunch of these, even though I just want a few of the smaller ones. I'll just set those others aside for a later project. So I die cut these out of some really pretty vellum paper, which is like a see-through transparent kind of a paper. And I just thought they'd add just a little bit more interest here. So I'm just going to glue the centers of those onto my little sky here. And then to cover the glue in the center of these little snowflakes, I'm going to add a few embellishments. So I'm using the Pink Fresh Studio Essentials Jewel Mix. And you can see that quite a few of these colors would work. I went with that lighter pink, but there's a darker pink and there's also these clear ones as well. So any of those would work really well here. These little gems are 3 different sizes, which is really nice. And then I'm just using my Stick It tool from We Are Memory Keepers to attach these. So I'm going to add those to the center of each of those little snowflakes, and I've grabbed the smaller little gems here. I'll just put a dot of glue there and attach each of those. Then I decided to add 3 more up at the top, so I used all 3 sizes. I used the large, the medium, and the small, just to bring your eye up towards the top a little bit there. I didn't want it to be too plain up at the top. So now I've got my little snowman. I'm going to pop him up using some Scotch foam mounting tape, and I'll place plenty of tape all around the back of this. I just want to make sure that it stands up nicely as it goes through the mail. So just cut some smaller little pieces of that and make sure you fill that in. And then with my bone folder, I'm just pressing that backing down. This new Scotch tape is very sticky and I'm finding it a little harder to remove the backing. So if I press it with my bone folder first, I'm finding that it's a little bit easier to remove that. So now I'll place that towards the right hand side here, just above my little paw prints. And then I've got my Lawn Fawn Schoolyard paper pack, and this color matches perfectly. So I'm going to cut a piece that measures 8.5 by 7 inches, and I'll score that at 3.5 inches. Again, creating our standard slimline card, which will be 3.5 by 8.5. So that panel we're creating will fit on this perfectly. So I'm just pressing that crease out with my bone folder. And now we can go ahead and line this panel up. So I'm going to attach this using my ATG 700 permanent tape dispenser. And I love this thing. It's so easy to use. It goes on really easily and you can turn corners with it. And if you go over the edge, you can just push that adhesive back. So it's really, really an easy tape to use. So now we've got that panel on the front of the card. Now I wanted to add some little shadows here to my paw prints. So I went back to the Haze Blue and I'm just adding some little shadows right around these paw prints, sort of down towards the bottom of these. And then I'll add a little tiny shadow here on my snowman. I'm going back to my blender and I'll just blend that out a little bit here. And I'll do that for all of these little paw prints as well. So my goal here was to show you that even though these slimline cards are quite large, a little larger than we're used to working with, you really can leave some white space. You don't have to fill the whole thing in. And so here we've created a beautiful sky panel, but we've left everything else pretty much white. So by just adding a few little paw prints and a sentiment, we finished off this card. So I hope you give these slimline cards a try. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. And also hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.